Chosen one, you are here because your intuition sensed a massive, hidden truth was finally breaking through the silence. A significant revelation is currently causing a frantic ripple effect among those who have been complicit in keeping you in the dark. The reality in the unseen is clear. Everyone is begging this person to come tell you the truth, but nothing can save them. No amount of performed remorse or staged courage can protect them from the consequences of their deliberate deception. Every disaster has a beginning that looked harmless. It starts with a single decision that does not feel significant in the moment, a fork in the path where one direction looks easier, and this person takes it without thinking about what is waiting at the end. For this person, it started with a choice to stay quiet. There was no dramatic moment. This person simply knew something, and in the instant they knew it, they looked at the cost of telling you and then looked at the cost of saying nothing. Saying nothing felt cheaper, so they said nothing. That was the match. Small, barely visible, but chosen ones, you know what matches do. They do not stay small, not when they fall into the right conditions, and silence carries exactly the conditions that fire needs to grow. The quiet spread. One stretch of silence became longer, and with each passing period, the fire this person thought they had under control was spreading through everything they had built. They could not see it yet because the smoke had not reached them, but it was moving, patient, purposeful, and completely indifferent to their plans. Here is the part that should land in your chest. While this person stood in their comfortable silence, telling themselves the situation was manageable, you were living inside the burn. You were navigating a reality that had been secretly altered. You were making decisions based on a map that someone had deliberately made incomplete. You extended trust to people and situations that did not deserve it, because someone had already removed the warning signs before you could read them. You felt it, though, did you not? Something never quite added up. Something in the atmosphere around this situation always felt slightly off. You caught yourself wondering why your instincts kept firing on something that looked fine on the surface. You questioned yourself. You wondered if you were being too sensitive. You asked yourself whether the problem was how you were seeing things rather than the thing you were actually seeing. That self-doubt was not an accident. That was the design. When someone alters your reality and then positions you to doubt your own perception of it, the deception doubles. You do not just get deceived once. You become the person arguing against your own instincts on their behalf. And this person benefited from every single moment you spent talking yourself out of what you already knew. Here is something that deserves to be said plainly, because most people navigating what you have navigated never get to hear it said directly. The fact that you felt the wrongness without having full proof is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that something was genuinely wrong in the situation. Your gut was processing real signals. The low-grade unease you carried through this entire season was not anxiety without cause. It was intelligence without confirmation. Those are two completely different things, and you deserve to hear that clearly. Fire does not care how quietly it moves. It does not care that the person who lit the match still believes they are in control. It does not pause because someone is not ready for it. It keeps spreading. And the moment always arrives when the smoke reaches the level they are standing on. That moment is here, and they are starting to smell it. Something has shifted. You may have already felt it in the atmosphere around your situation, a pressure building, the kind of change that does not announce itself but makes everything feel different, like the air before a storm that has not yet arrived. The controlled silence this person has been living inside developed cracks. Maybe another person who shares the knowledge started talking in the wrong direction. Maybe circumstances shifted in a way that made the hidden thing visible from an angle this person did not anticipate. Maybe the version of events they have been managing started showing contradictions that too many people were beginning to notice at once. Whatever cracked it, the seal is gone, and this person is fully aware of it. Now think about the begging. Think about what it takes for a group of people to reach the point of pleading with someone to come forward. Think about how heavy the knowledge has to be and how uncomfortable it has to sit for people to start pushing another person toward honesty. People do not collectively beg over something small. They beg when the weight of a shared silence becomes a burden that no one can keep carrying comfortably. Someone in that circle eventually decides their loyalty does not extend far enough to keep holding it. And chosen one, that someone may already be moving. Now watch what this person does next. Most people miss this part because they are watching the surface instead of what is driving things underneath. This person is about to shift from silence to confession. And everyone watching that shift is going to call it bravery. They are going to say this person finally did the right thing and deserves credit for coming forward. Do not extend that credit yet, not until you fully understand what coming forward means at this specific stage. If this message aligned with your purpose, hype this video so fellow chosen ones can find their confirmation. When someone has been controlling a truth, the worst thing that can happen to their position is for that truth to escape without them controlling the release. A truth that surfaces without them arrives raw. It arrives without their framing, without the emotional softening they would apply, without the ordering of details they would choose. It arrives exactly as it is. And exactly as it is happens to be precisely what they have spent all this time making sure you could not fully see. So this person is not moving toward honesty, they are moving toward control of the delivery. They want to hand you their version of the truth so they can shape how it lands, what hits you first, what gets softened, what gets quietly buried while you are processing the emotion of the moment, rather than tracking what is actually being said. They are betting that your relief at finally receiving something will outweigh your awareness of what is still missing. They are betting on how long you have been waiting for answers, but they have made a fundamental miscalculation about you, something that changes everything about how this ends. We will get there. Keep that in mind. Right now, in whatever private space this person occupies when they are alone with their thoughts, they are not practicing how to be honest. They are practicing how to appear honest. The difference between those two things is so significant that it needs to fully land before we move forward. They have rehearsed the words, the tone, the emotional pacing, where to let the voice soften, which details to lead with, because those details make them look conflicted rather than calculated, which details to hold in reserve, so that if you press them, they can say they were not hiding anything, they simply did not lead with it. What they are building is a version of the truth, not the truth itself. It is engineered the way a photograph gets engineered when someone crops it. Everything inside the frame will be clear, detailed and emotionally compelling, real enough to feel significant, real enough to pass, but the edges will be gone, and the edges are where the actual picture lives. Here is their specific move. They will confess to something real. They may even confess to something that makes them look bad. Handing over a small wrong first is the oldest technique in the playbook of partial transparency. Admitting to something uncomfortable makes it appear that nothing is being held back, because most people assume that anyone willing to say something unflattering about themselves must have said everything. That assumption is precisely what this person is counting on. The real offense, the detail, the pattern, the depth of deliberateness that would completely rewrite your understanding of everything that happened, that stays buried. It stays behind the part of the door they did not open, and they will stand in what looks like full transparency, holding everything at exactly the angle that lets light in while keeping the darkest part in shadow. When you receive pieces instead of the whole, your mind works to complete the picture because you are wired that way. You reach for the most coherent interpretation available with the materials you have been given. And if any part of you still has trust in this person, or if any part of you is simply relieved to finally be receiving something after all of this, you will reach for the interpretation that resolves the picture most comfortably. That reach is exactly what they are counting on. They do not need you to believe everything, they just need you to fill the gaps in their favor. You've probably noticed a lot of Chosen One channels on YouTube have stopped publishing, videos pulled, voices silenced. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice. That's exactly why I'm putting you on to something real, Destiny Engine. I built this because I was done watching chosen ones get dragged through betrayal, isolation and attacks while their enemies strutted around unchecked. I want to help you accelerate the speed of your divine justice and step fully into your purpose. And the beauty of it, you don't even have to lift a finger. Destiny Engine takes their downfall and flips it into your rise. This isn't another meditation app. It's declassified consciousness technology, the same mind programming tools your enemies once used to install fear, competition and scarcity, re-engineered to restore your sovereignty and align you with the cooperative, upgraded operating framework. It generates personalized sequences mapped to your divine purpose. The hardest thing you'll do is put on headphones, press play and watch your enemies keep digging their own grave. Join Destiny Engine to support your favorite channels and use it for your own rise. It's a 360 win. Start your Destiny Engine for $7 today and turn everything they did to break you into fuel for your rise. Link in the description. Here is your protection. Do not reach. When the confession comes, resist the impulse to immediately complete the picture. Sit with exactly what was given. Then ask yourself what is conspicuously absent, because what this person leaves out of their confession carries more information than everything they put in. There is one more tactic you need to know about before they show up, and it is designed to disarm your discernment in real time. They will question your memory, not harshly, not bluntly. They will do it in that careful, soft way that sounds like concern but functions like sabotage. Phrases like, "I think you may have understood that differently," or "I remember it a little differently," or "I know this is a lot to take in." Every one of those phrases is designed to pre-position your perception as unreliable before you can even respond to what was actually said. If your memory of events can be made to feel uncertain, their version gets introduced as the authoritative correction. You were there. You lived it. Your account of what happened is not a rough draft waiting for their revision. It is the primary source. No one who withheld the truth from you gets to rewrite the record of how you experienced their silence. This person has been moving through life telling themselves the fire they started was not going to reach them. They managed what people knew. They kept the truth at a safe distance where it could do damage to your life without touching theirs. And for a significant stretch of time, that worked. They moved with relative ease while you navigated the smoke they produced. But fire does not negotiate, and now it has reached them. The people who share this knowledge are no longer holding it quietly out of loyalty or strategy. They are speaking because the pressure has become impossible to contain. This person can feel the temperature rising around everything they have built. And for the first time, the silence they used as a weapon has become their most immediate threat. So they move. Watch specifically how they move. They do not arrive broken. They arrive composed. They do not lead with apology. They arrive carrying the energy of someone who has made a significant, difficult decision. The first impression they want to create is courage. They want you to feel, in the very first moments of this confession, that you are witnessing someone choosing integrity at great personal cost. This is exactly the moment where your strength has to be fully present. This moment is designed to pull you into your emotions and out of your discernment. A person who has been paying attention throughout this entire situation does not abandon their perception just because someone finally showed up with something that resembles the truth. You receive what is offered. You stay grounded. You let them speak. And while they speak, you are not only listening to what is being said, you are listening to the shape of what is not being said. You are watching where the emotion intensifies and where it goes flat. You are tracking which parts get rushed through and which parts receive weight, because the parts they move past quickly are the parts that would cost them the most if you were allowed to sit with them. Watch for this specifically. At some point in the confession, the focus will shift to how difficult this has been for them, how long they carried it, how much they struggled with the decision, how hard this moment is, and maybe portions of that are even partially true. But notice what that framing accomplishes. It moves the emotional center of the conversation away from what the silence cost you and toward what speaking is costing them. Your experience becomes the backdrop, the secondary concern. Their courage becomes the headline. Do not let the weight of this conversation settle there. The most significant thing in this exchange is not what it cost them to finally speak. The most significant thing is what it cost you while they were deciding whether to. Here is where the entire dynamic flips. Here is the miscalculation that is going to cost this person everything they hoped the confession would protect. They arrived expecting to deliver a revelation. They have been imagining this moment, picturing your face, picturing the weight of you finally receiving something that had been kept from you. They arrived with the energy of the gatekeeper finally opening the lock. They walked into the wrong situation entirely. Chosen one, you have not been passive inside this silence. You have been collecting. Every stretch of time this person held the truth back. You were gathering evidence without even realizing that is what you were doing. You were catching the moments where the explanation did not match the emotion. You were tracking the behaviors that contradicted the account being presented. You were filing away the detail that almost made sense but not quite, the hesitation that appeared where there should have been ease, the reaction that was slightly off for the situation. You were not losing your mind, you were sharpening your perception. Your instincts were doing exactly what they were built to do, in real time, across every interaction connected to this situation. This person arrived to hand you a picture, but you already built that picture without their framing, without their cropping, without their chosen sequence of which detail arrives first. You built it from the raw material of what you lived through. And your version is sharper than anything they can now deliver, because yours was never filtered through their self-interest. Yours came through direct experience, and perception that has been trained by pain and honed by survival does not miss much. So here is what is actually about to happen. They are going to speak, and instead of delivering a revelation, they are going to receive confirmation of something they never considered. Instead of watching you unravel, they are going to meet stillness, the particular kind of stillness that belongs to someone who already knows, who already processed, who already healed around the wound. This confession was supposed to be the first step in addressing that stillness is going to reach this person in a way they did not prepare for. Nothing dismantles the confidence of someone operating from information control quite like discovering that the person they were withholding from was already ahead of them, not slightly ahead, significantly ahead. The confession they believed was their power move is actually the moment they lose the last leverage they had. And chosen one, that leverage was never protecting you, it was only ever protecting them. When someone delivers information to you, it arrives wrapped in their presentation, their emphasis, their emotional framing, their chosen sequence. But the understanding you assembled on your own through observation and survival carries none of that wrapping. It arrived unedited. It came directly through the unfiltered reality of what you witnessed and endured. That is why it sits so deep in you. That is why it does not shake when they finally speak. It was never built on their words, it was built on your experience. And nothing they confess can reach the foundation that was already laid inside you before they ever opened their mouth. Let us not move past the cost too quickly, because what is about to happen extends well beyond the confession itself. For the entire duration of this silence, this person ran a private calculation. They weighed the cost of speaking against the cost of staying quiet and chose the cheaper option every single time. And for them, staying quiet was cheap, a little internal discomfort, some guilt managed the way you manage background noise, an occasional restless stretch that felt like paying dues without actually paying anything. The personal cost to them was negligible, but the cost did not disappear. It transferred your peace, your clarity, your capacity to move through your own life with accurate information. Your trust extended to people and situations that did not earn it because the warnings had been removed before you could access them. That is what the silence actually cost. And every bit of it was charged to you. Now the economics shift permanently. When this truth fully surfaces, and it will because fire always finds somewhere to go, the bill transfers back. Every relationship this person maintained while the deception was doing its protective work is about to be stress-tested against the real information. Every person who stood in their corner, vouched for them, or took their side will discover they were doing so with incomplete data. That discovery arrives with a specific kind of anger, the anger that belongs to someone who realizes they were made to look uninformed in service of someone else's survival. And that anger moves in a direction. It moves toward the source. Connections fracture. Access disappears. The relational standing this person built while the silence was doing its work begins to dissolve, not from cruelty, but from the natural consequence of trust discovering it was misplaced. And there is one dimension of this cost that rarely gets named. The silence did not only manage your perception of this person, it managed their perception of themselves. As long as the truth stayed hidden, they could maintain a self-image that excluded the full picture of what they had chosen. They could frame their silence to themselves as complicated, defensible, maybe even principled. When the truth comes out, that internal fiction collapses too. They will have to look clearly at who they actually were during the period they stayed quiet, not who they told themselves they were, but who they actually were. That confrontation is one of the costs they never fully priced, and it is arriving whether they feel prepared for it or not. There is one final move embedded in the confession itself, one that is so sophisticated most people walk straight into it without ever noticing it happened. When this person delivers their confession, they are not only managing what you receive, they are managing what you are expected to owe them for receiving it. They will position themselves as the courageous one, the person who finally stepped forward, who at significant personal cost chose honesty. And they will let that positioning settle into the air without stating it explicitly. The energy of the confession will carry the expectation underneath it, the expectation of gratitude, of acknowledgement, of recognition that what they did was hard and brave and deserves credit. That expectation is the trap. Because if you receive this confession with relief, with gratitude, with the energy of someone who has been rescued, you will have handed this person something enormous. You will have handed them authority over your own account of what happened. Once they become the one who gave you clarity, they become the source, and sources get consulted. When questions arise later, when someone presents a different version, when things get re-examined, people will go back to the source. And the source will continue shaping interpretation, releasing details when it benefits them, adjusting timelines, steering perception from a position they never actually relinquished because you handed it back in the moment you thanked them. They do not want your freedom. They want your continued dependence on their version of events. Do not accept liberation that still has conditions attached to it. You receive what is offered. You do not perform gratitude for a responsibility that should have been met long ago. You do not position someone as heroic for finally doing the minimum. You take the information, hold it against everything you already know, identify what is missing, and then you move forward on your own foundation, not theirs, yours. And when the push for forgiveness arrives, because it will arrive quickly, understand what is actually being requested. This person wants to close the account immediately. The confession was supposed to be the action that earns their relief. If you take time to process, if you have questions that cannot be answered cleanly, if you need space to sit with what was offered and measure it against what you already know, they will frame your processing as punishment. They will suggest that coming forward and being met with anything less than immediate resolution is unfair. Processing what someone did to you is not punishment for them. Taking time to determine whether you received the full truth is not cruelty, it is discernment. Forgiveness, when it comes, belongs to your timeline, not as a transaction designed to close their account and restore their comfort, but as something that happens inside you for your own benefit in your own time. No deadline belongs to them. And now we arrive at what this person feared most, not what gets revealed about what they did, but what gets confirmed about who you are. This is what made everything higher stakes than just their reputation. This is why the delay stretched as long as it did. This is why they kept renegotiating with themselves about whether the moment was right. The instant the full truth surfaces, something happens to the record around you that cannot be undone by any previous lie, any dismissal of your instincts, or any whisper campaign. You get validated completely, without caveat, publicly. Every moment you raised a concern and were told you were overreacting, every instance your instincts fired and someone acted as though the problem was your sensitivity. Every time you were positioned as the difficult one, the one who could not let things go, the one who was too much, every single one of those moments gets reframed. The instant the full picture becomes visible, the people who doubted you will have to go back through what they know. They will revisit conversations and realize you were the one who saw it clearly before the proof was available, before it was safe or convenient to see it. You were already there, carrying the real picture, trying to get people to look at what you were already looking at. That is authority, not the kind granted by a title, but the kind earned by being right when being right came at a cost. Here is why this specific outcome frightens this person more than any other consequence. Once the people around you understand that your perception was accurate at the most inconvenient possible time, your voice carries differently from that point forward. Ojin, every concern you raise going forward will be heard through the memory of this moment. Every warning you sound will land with the credibility of someone who has been proven right when it was hard to believe them. This person loses the most effective tool they had against you. That tool was doubt, the subtle, persistent suggestion that you were the one misreading things, that your perception was the variable that needed correcting. That suggestion kept you questioning yourself just enough to prevent the real questions from fully forming into something that could threaten their position. When the truth comes out, they lose that tool permanently, and you gain something that cannot be taken back. You gain the standing that comes from surviving a situation engineered to make you distrust yourself, and coming through the other side still holding exactly what you always knew. That is the mirror they cannot step away from. Not only what it reveals about who they are, but what it permanently confirms about who you have always been. Nothing is going to save this person from what is coming. Not the confession, not the emotional performance around it, not even genuine remorse, if they find any. Here is why. The record already exists. Every period of silence is documented in the record of what happened and when. Every calculation they made is an entry in the archive of their choices. Every moment they selected their comfort over your clarity is evidence that cannot be erased by a late confession, regardless of how skillfully it is executed. A confession does not clear the record, it adds to it. It adds the moment when they finally spoke, positioned directly beside every moment they chose not to. The gap between those two entries is their legacy now. Legacies do not yield to explanation. They do not soften for context or renegotiate based on good intentions. They are fixed, visible to anyone who examines them. Some people who supported this person will maintain that loyalty, not necessarily because they believe the full account, but because the personal cost of withdrawing support is too high. But even inside that loyalty, something will now exist that was not there before, a quiet question that never gets asked aloud, the particular kind of doubt that lives inside a relationship that has discovered it was built on incomplete information. Trust that has been revealed as misplaced does not return to its original form. It becomes something that functions like trust, but extends more carefully, remembers more, and moves slower. Access disappears. Invitations stop arriving without formal explanation. Doors that once opened without question begin to stay closed without ceremony. This is the full cost, not just the confession itself, but the entire restructuring of everything that was built on managed information. And once that restructuring is in motion, nothing stops it. The truth, fully released into the open, moves according to its own rules. It does not pause for feelings. It does not slow down because the person who started all of this finally decided to participate. It moves and it clears. While this person was calculating and protecting their position at your expense, something else was quietly operating in your life, something below the surface of the confusion, the frustration, and the nights when you could not fully articulate what was wrong. You were being built, not in spite of this season. Because of it, the specific conditions produced by what was being withheld from you, the sustained pressure of navigating without the full picture, The repeated experience of trusting your instincts while everything around you was arranged to make those instincts feel unreliable. Those conditions were producing something in you that no comfortable circumstance can generate. Perception tested under sustained pressure is a different quality than perception that has never been challenged. Discernment sharpened against active deception is a different instrument than discernment that has never encountered real resistance. The strength you developed during this period, the strength you built by finding your own footing without the information you were owed, belongs to a category that does not develop in ease. You became someone specific, someone whose instincts operate at depth, someone whose knowing does not require outside confirmation to stay stable, someone capable of holding what they see without releasing it, simply because the people around them have not caught up yet. Most people navigating these exact conditions would have surrendered their perception just to make the dissonance stop. They would have allowed someone else's version of events to quietly replace their own, because sustaining your own understanding against sustained social pressure without support is genuinely exhausting. The pressure is designed to produce compliance. Most people comply. You did not. You held, you kept seeing, you kept knowing, you kept moving forward without the map you were owed, and you found your way through on your own. What this season built in you is the ability to hold your position under pressure, arriving from multiple directions at once, from the atmosphere around you, from people who should have been on your side, from your own doubt turning briefly against you, from a silence loud enough to sound like proof that you were wrong. Holding through all of that at once requires something that only develops under exactly those conditions. You developed it, without anyone telling you what was being forged, without any guarantee it would ever be recognized. You kept holding, and now it matters in ways that extend far beyond this situation alone. Chosen one, you do not need their match. You never needed it. You are the fire. The reckoning arriving in your life right now does not belong to the person angling for one last chance to control how it lands. The reckoning belongs to the one who lived inside the burn first, who maintained clarity in the smoke, who refused to become the version of yourself this person needed you to be. That is you. Everything coming belongs to you. The vindication of your instincts, the confirmation of your discernment, the restoration of your name in the minds of everyone who was operating on incomplete information and made judgments they are now going to have to revisit. The permanent authority that comes from being publicly proven right in a situation where you were systematically made to feel wrong. Their confession belongs to them, along with everything the reckoning carries for a person who used silence as both weapon and shield, and is now discovering that the thing they believed was protecting them was always, from the very first choice, the thing that was going to bring down everything built on top of it. A truth told too late is just a confession looking for a discount, and there is no discount. There was never going to be one. The full price is here, and it is being charged to the person who ran up the bill, not to you. You paid your portion in the confusion, in the darkness, in the long stretch of navigating without the full picture you were owed. Your account is settled, your dues are paid. What you are walking into now is not the aftermath of someone else's exposure. It is the opening of your era. You do not owe anyone a performance of how you receive this reckoning. You do not owe gracious relief. You do not owe a public display of healing designed to make others comfortable with how this resolution arrived. You do not have to rush toward peace just because the people around you are ready to move on. This is your moment, and your moment gets to look exactly like what you need it to look like. Quiet authority, grounded presence, the kind of calm that people cannot fully explain but cannot stop watching. The energy of someone who already knew, who was standing on solid ground before the confession arrived. Who does not need the confession to validate the knowing, because the knowing was never in question. That is your posture, not performance, not vindictiveness. The settled, unshakable clarity of a chosen one who walked through something designed to dismantle them and arrived on the other side still completely and undeniably themselves. The era ahead of you was not built by this person finally telling the truth. It was built by your survival of their silence, and that foundation, chosen one, holds everything. You remain, still standing, still clear, completely and impossibly whole. That is who you are. That is who you have always been. No late confession, no calculated performance of honesty, no person who spent a season managing information at your expense. None of it could reach deep enough to change that. You were chosen for exactly this, and as the smoke clears, the world is about to see what that means. Let it see.